So I have been watching Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated for a few months now, and I have just finished it, and it has been a ride, that's for sure. I loved watching it, and I will miss it. It was such a childhood staple of mine. I absolutely loved Mystery Incorporated as a child because of how fun and cool it was, and I thought nothing could even compare to it. Which is why I would unfairly trash Be Cool Scooby-Doo, the show that came out after it, which was wrong, I admit. But when I rewatched it, I realised that as good as the show is, it isn't that great. Now, don't get too riled up. I think this show did absolute wonders for the Scooby-Doo franchise. It introduced a much more scarier horror nightmare high stakes layer to the franchise that was definitely needed at the time, and the direct-to-video movies such as Camp Scare and Abracadabra Doo, which were released around the same time as the show, have followed suit in this as well. It went back to the roots as to why people had fallen in love with Scooby again, and definitely gave massive zombie island energy, albeit more scarier than the movie. Mystery Incorporated also introduced us to a concrete and grounded setting of Crystal Cove, which was nice because normally the gang are just going from place to place in other versions of the franchise, which is totally fine and what I think is the magic of Scooby-Doo. However, it was a nice change, and we also got to see recurring characters in the show such as Jules Avocados and the two mayors, Janet Nettles and Mayor Jones, which was also exciting because cool because there was potential to flesh out their characters. And again, we didn't see anything like this before. Sure, we saw this in the What's New Scooby-Doo era of direct-to-video movies, with Del Chillman from Loch Ness making an appearance in Be Cool Scooby-Doo, and the Hex Girls who appear in the movie era in Witch's Ghost, and again in the pre-What's New era movie Legend of the Vampire. But that was only a small fracture, and it was so cool of the show to give us more of that. I also love how we get to see the characters' families. It really expands the main characters who we've known and loved for years and gives them some of them anyway, much needed development. I also love the gothic and eerie aesthetic the show has. It feels true to the show's title as well as how the gang are dressed in the original 1969 designs, a concept I love because it reminds me of Scooby-Doo Where Are You?, but new and revamped for a whole new generation. However, what sins in the dark must come out in light, and I, while watching the show, noticed a few problems. Well, a few probably small things. Problems within the show. The Daphne and Fred pairing. This was one of the worst aspects of the entire show. I don't understand why people say I like me some Fred and Daphne because they are the most insufferable couple pairing to date. I could not stand them whatsoever in the series.
Sometimes when I look around, the only one I see at my side
given that they have had
and that's
members
just where
in
I
other Scooby
belong,
media,
riding
such as the
shotgun with
direct-to-video
my
movie
guy.
Stage Fright,
Yeah,
and towards the end of the
you
second and
do.
last season of the show.
And I
But
don't
in
want
this show, they
anyone
are
to
just
ever take your
bad.
place.
I hate how nearly 50 to 100% of Daphne's character
What are you doing?
is revolved around
Daphne,
loving Fred, pining
will you
over
ride
Fred,
shotgun
and
with me
whenever Fred is talking to
forever?
another girl. And
Are you?
also, and there's also pushing this
Wow.
weird,
Am I
non-existent
having a rush
relationship
of blood
that
to
is
my
never
head
going to
making me
happen.
hear things? Or maybe
One
this onion
thing
ring
the
is
show did
actually
dirty
calamari,
was
and my
totally
allergies
waste
are
Daphne's
causing my brain to
potential.
swell.
She
Your
still
brain
has a
looks
small
fine
base-
from here.
She still has a
So,
small badass moments.
is that a yes?
But she is just so unlikable
If you're
and
asking
annoying
me to
in the
marry
show
you,
at times,
oh, Freddie,
especially with
yes.
her obsession
You
with Fred.
trapped me at hello.
I understand that she's a teenager, so am I. But I
You
think
mean
there
after
was
we
a better
graduate,
way of
right?
keeping Fred and Daphne together without her
I
being
don't
so
know what
clingy.
that is, but
And
sure.
if she liked him so badly,
Whatever you
I
say.
think she should have just told him straight because Fred in the show is a clueless infant. He doesn't pick up social cues in their relationships, so it would have been better if she just been straight up with him. She really annoyed me when she wanted to get married to Fred in the first season. I just thought it was a stupid thing to do, especially given the fact that they were minors then. I get it was supposed to be dramatic, but I just thought it was a bit pointless and unnecessary. And she really got on my nerves when Fred, at the end of the first season, finds out that Mayor Jones is not his real dad and has a breakdown about it and wants to leave and take a break from the gang because it's obviously distressing. And instead of being there for Fred and comforting him, she's upset that they're not going to get married and suddenly gets so upset with him, which I just don't understand. How can we root for them when she's just so belittling and negligent over his feelings? She also gets a new boyfriend in the second season, a tacky, pompous Twilight actor parody. And she keeps going on about how he's so different to Fred. But how? At least Fred was nice and caring. The guy she was dating at the start of the season was so unaware and bratty and just felt totally lame and was even a villain later on in the season. How is that a step up from Fred? I also really hated this because for me it just ruined Daphne's character for me. And by dating this terrible actor guy, just made her seem so shallow. I wish in the second season we got to see her develop more interest now that she and Fred were broken up. I wish we got to see her develop a love for journalism or reporting, a callback to her Zombie Island character, or her love for fashion and accessories like we see with her What's New version, or even her interest for martial arts fighting like we see in the direct-to-video movie Samurai Sword. So many avenues we could have taken with her character, and yet nothing. She's just running around Crystal Cove with this annoying, pointless actor guy who serves no purpose to the show. Her character was just wasted potential, and it shows in the show. She, however, does improve within the second season and actually supports Fred when he meets Brad and Judy, his evil real parents, and actually apologizes for her actions to Fred in the penultimate season 2 finale episode, which I do appreciate. Needless to say, I am not a Daphne and Fred stan. This show is like a goldmine for those who are, but I just could not get behind them at all. I hope we do not see this pairing again, but if we do, I hope it's done properly and well thought out. My second problem with the show is the stupid Velma, Shaggy, and Scooby love triangle. Velma and Scooby were also a big issue for me within the show. I like how, for Velma at least, it was her time to shine as she was the one that was leading the others in the mystery and showing her snarky, critical, and hilarious side, which was hilarious at times, but overdone at other times. I feel like she was put on the sidelines in other Scooby-Doo media, especially in the What's New Scooby-Doo era of direct-to-video movies, so it was nice to see her actually be a part of the action and leading the group. However, my main issue with Velma is how she forced a relationship with Shaggy. I really don't like when the writers force relationships within the gang. I just feel the gang should not date each other. I always just see them as best friends and not couples. It just feels cringe and wrong. I couldn't stand it, her trying to kiss Shaggy when he was clearly uncomfortable, forcing him to do things that he didn't want to do, such as changing the way he dressed, and in one episode giving him these ugly, stretchy, skinny jeans, and in said same episode trying to stop him from saying like, trying to morph him into the idealistic boyfriend. It just felt wrong for me. If you're going to date someone, you should accept them and their flaws, to not morph them into someone new entirely. I think someone, perhaps Reddit online, mentioned that in the season 1 episode How of the Fright Hound, how Velma was trying to replace Scooby after he was falsely arrested for attacking a tourist group. And I agree. She was trying to act like Scooby, but only got to herself, but only to get herself closer to Shaggy, which I also found weird and strange. She did not need to do all of that, and she knows how much Scooby means to Shaggy, so similar to Daphne, she is not being sensitive to his feelings, as he was clearly upset. Also, when Scooby finds out about their relationship, she tries to force Shaggy to choose between her and Scooby, which I just thought was not the best thing to do, and he ends up choosing Scooby, but breaking up with Velma in a kind of tacky way. And Velma starts going on about how she was done dirty, how her boyfriend dumped her for a dog, and as viewers, we're meant to feel like Shaggy is the enemy and Velma is in the right. Even Mayor Jones says in another episode that Shaggy dumped her for a dog, Scooby. But this just feels so wrong to me on so many levels. Firstly, I do think Shaggy should have had a decent, straightforward conversation with her about their relationship. It was always clear how uncomfy and scared he was in the relationship. If he generally wasn't feeling it, instead of breaking up with her in a tacky subpar way, just make Velma see how uncomfortable she made him. It would have been such a nice moment in the show, as we could have seen them become closer as friends after recognizing their own faults in the situation. Secondly, I think Velma's whole snarky and I'm right and everyone around me is wrong mentality at points is her downfall. We're supposed to, as viewers, feel heartbroken for her because she was dumped for Scooby. But honestly, should we? She was such a horrible girlfriend to him, forcing him to do things that he didn't want to do, and coming in between him and his friend. It's sad, but she was forcing this hypothetical relationship that was just not going to happen or set up anytime soon. With Scooby, I got annoyed with him, and he annoys me at times throughout the show. But when he finds out about Shaggy and Velma, I get annoyed a lot here. He gets annoyed at Shaggy for dating Velma, as he believes that this is Shaggy's way of dumping him for a girl, which I just don't get, because he should be happy that Shaggy had found someone, yes? If you two are such good friends, you should be happy that your bestie has found someone, not be so toxic and cold. Even as a young child, I got mad at the dog. That's why I couldn't care about Nova and Scooby's relationship later on. Nova is a god dog that Scooby loves, but I got annoyed because you can like someone else and ignore your best friend. Yet when Shaggy likes someone and still includes Scooby-Doo and does not exclude him, he's the bad guy. I swear Shaggy, like Daphne, was done so dirty in the show. At the end of the show, everyone has love interests, to a degree. Velma and Marcy, Fred and Daphne, Scooby and Nova, and Shaggy and who? I think the show would have had a great opportunity to bring Crystal and Amber from the Alien Invaders direct-to-video movie, as they both fit the vibe of Mission Incorporated, and I just love Crystal and Shaggy. It would have been incredible. Another missed opportunity. My final point, as you know, as to my problems with the show, is that the Mystery Inc. gang are horrible people. The gang in the show are so unlikable. Obviously, they get better in the last few episodes of the show, but they are just not the nicest to themselves or to each other. I really didn't like how they treated Marcy in the show and kept calling her hot dog water, which is what the kids at their own school called her behind her back, even though Velma told them countless times that her name was Marcy. And when Daphne leaves the group and Marcy joins in the second season, Fred is just so annoyingly rude to her. The show plays it off for laughs, but it comes off as douchey and rude of him, and he still calls her hot dog water. Also, when Daphne comes back to the group, they kick Marcy out of the group. They butter her up by giving her a table of food, but then they can just get rid of her, which I just didn't understand. I get it's always been the five of them, but to just kick her out the way they did was so trashy of them to do. All I'm saying is that the What's New Scooby-Doo gang would never do that to her. Did you see how they invited Miyumi at the end of Scooby-Doo and the Samurai Sword to join them? So there is space for 6-member. The gang in that era are so sweet and had likable traits, they don't just dump people on the side like that. Like trash. I actually much prefer Marcy to be in the group than Daphne in the show, honestly, as she brought more to the table. It just makes it just makes them feel all cliquey, and I hated that. Also, when Velma in the season 2 episode reunites with Shaggy, Scooby, and Fred, she says, "All of you left me," which I just don't quite understand. The reason why Fred left at the end of the first season was because he had a mental breakdown. The reason why Shaggy and Scooby left was because Shaggy's parents forced them to, and the reason why Daphne left was because she was so heartbroken. However, side note, Fred, Shaggy, and Scooby left Crystal Cove, and I'm surprised that Daphne would even bother to and I'm surprised that Daphne never bothered to check on Velma or vice versa. I would have thought that they would stay close, but I guess after the whole Angel Dynamite thing, I guess not. It just sucked because I thought those two were the closest after Shaggy and Scooby. It was just kind of a nasty thing for her to say because it was so selfish. Everyone was going through things, not just her. This also brings me back to my previous point about her snarkiness being her downfall. Overall, those were my main overall points about Mission Incorporated. It is a good show and definitely needed for Scooby, but I do feel like it is overhyped a bit. It's great, but not a whole new prophecy or anything. I do hope that we get a Scooby show like this again because that would be everything. And I did love the mystery and the intrigue that the show had to offer, and it was great. Anyways, I hope you all enjoyed this video, and please consider subscribing and liking this video and commenting, and see you all in the next video. Bye for now.